I, the forgotten truth of the earth motherland. Before borders carved the globe, before kings divided lands like spoils, before empires marched with banners of conquest, the children of light remembered a truth older than history. Humanity began in the motherland, the cradle of the earth, the soil from which the first image bearers rose, a place where spirit and land intertwined, where every river carried memory, where every mountain breathed ancestral prayer, where tribes held wisdom older than monarchies and dignity flowed like rivers across untouched plains. The children of darkness envied this land, its power, its resilience, its connection to the Father, for the shadow understands. A people who remember their origin cannot be enslaved, and so the persecution began. Not with swords or chains or conquest, but with deception. A whisper spread through the nations, separate them from their beginning, and the world becomes ours to control. At the age of enslavement, the shadow's global harvest, Europe did not enter an age of enlightenment. It entered an age of predation. Britain, Spain, Portugal, France, Germany, the Netherlands. Each became a wolf wearing a crown. They crossed oceans not for trade, but for souls to break. Not for friendship, but for harvest. Millions were stolen, shackled, branded, beaten, trafficked, murdered, erased. This was not accidental cruelty. It was a global strategy to uproot the earth's firstborn nations, those whose cultures preserved echoes of Eden. One, the uprooting of ancient memory. The enslavers targeted astronomers, herbalists, priests, storytellers, warriors, philosophers, mothers who carried ancestral knowledge, fathers who carried histories of the land. These were the image bearers whose identity threatened the shadow's empire of lies. The chains of flesh and spirit, the whip crushed the body, the auction crushed the family, the renaming crushed the memory, the forced religion twisted into bondage crushed the soul, yet the divine spark refused to die. America, the new land of broken chains and new chains. When the enslaved arrived in the Americas, the shadow rejoiced. A land that proclaimed liberty became a stage for the world's most engineered cruelty under systems built by European powers and monarchies. The stolen endured, culture forbidden, families torn apart, languages banned, native nations exterminated, identity stripped, skin weaponized against them. The shadow whispered, if we break the body, we break the soul. If we erase the past, we own the future. But the light recorded every tear. I the slaughter of the indigenous nations before plantations rose. Before slave ships crossed oceans, the first nations of the Americas walked in harmony with creation. Their traditions carried spiritual covenants, older than kings and kingdoms. And so conquest came as massacres, forced removals, broken treaties, starvation policies, disease deployed like arrows, entire nations erased, languages silenced, sacred traditions uprooted. This was not chaos, it was strategy. The shadow hissed, erase them, their memory tells too much truth.
Germany's hand in the shadow work, while Britain's empire spread. Oh, Germany crafted ideologies that poison the world. Oh,
Pseudoscience, eugenics, racial hierarchies, doctrines of superiority, lies dressed as scholarship, weapons disguised as wisdom. These doctrines justified genocide, apartheid, Jim Crow, and colonialism. The shadow feasted, humanity bled. The true target of the shadow, the image of God. The children of light knew a deeper truth. Every human carries the divine imprint, the breath of the Father, the spark of eternity. But the shadow targeted those whose identities held the oldest memories. sacred traditions, ancestral cosmologies, knowledge of land and sky, communal identity. These were spiritual weapons against exception. Thus the shadow attacked not the weak, but the spiritually strong.
Became a priest of darkness long before the Congo screamed beneath the rubble ash, before rivers filled with ghosts and villages were turned into graveyards. The shadow sought a vessel, a ruler whose ambition outweighed his humanity. It found him in King Leopold II. To the world he appeared as a benevolent monarch, a philanthropist, a Christian king. But the children of light saw the truth. He wore a cassock of light over a heart of smoke. Leopold preached salvation with one hand and orchestrated slaughter with the other. He believed the motherland existed for his consumption, its people nothing more than laboring shadows. So he forged a private empire, not for Belgium, but for himself. A kingdom drenched in blood, built on deception, scripture twisting and forced labor. The missionary mandate of darkness, his hidden letter, found years later in a missionary's Bible, revealed the creed of his false gospel. Teach submission, not salvation. Demand obedience, not understanding. Destroy their warrior spirit, demonize their ancestral memory. Keep them poor so they remain powerless. Turn confession into surveillance. Replace their heroes with European idols. Evangelize so they never revolt. This was not religion, it was spiritual warfare masquerading as holiness. The letter became scripture for oppression. Missionaries became instruments of empire, and the Congo became a crucible of suffering that cried out to heaven. And a land that remembered God even while bleeding, despite broken bodies, severed hands, shattered families. The Congo never surrendered its soul, for the motherland carried the truth. The shadow feared. The image bearers remember God without needing a book or cathedral or throne. Their dances were petitions, their songs were prayers, their ancestors were testimonies, their land was a sanctuary. The shadow tried to sever that memory with whips, quotas, bullets, and twisted Bibles. But suffering forged a new fire. Villages whispered ancient prayers beneath soldiers' shadows. Women hid sacred songs and lullabies. Men carried ancestral pride and scars on their backs. Children dreamed of angels walking the forest with spears of flame. Heaven called them the keepers of the first covenant.
The tears recorded in heaven, every lash, every scream, every child stolen, every river baptized with blood, none of it was forgotten. The chronicle of heaven, written by angels who witness all injustice, records the Congo's agony as one of the darkest chapters in the story of image bearers. But even in the abyss, signs appeared. Dreamers saw visions. Prophets spoke from shadows. Elders whispered of reckoning. Heaven stirred. The crowned serpent believed himself eternal. But heaven had already marked his end. Next, the fall of the rubber throne, when testimonies leaked of mutilation, starvation, torture, of horrors unfit for earth. The world's conscience awoke.
began to crumble. He surrendered the Congo, not willingly, not repentantly, but publicly. His private kingdom ended. The world learned the truth, and the shadow lost a powerful vessel. But millions had perished, and generations lived with the trauma. The children of light understood. This was not merely history. It was a spiritual assault on the earth's firstborn nations.
They're just the echoes of Leopold in the modern age. His throne fell, but his ideology survived. Colonial governments replicated it. Corporations studied it. Churches inherited its doctrines, schools spread its lies. Nations built identities around its hierarchies. The shadow smiled. One king fell, but his poison became global. The spirit of Leopold became the spirit of modern oppression. A spirit that teaches. Forget your ancestors. Doubt your worth. Demonize your culture.
Worship our history.
Obey authority without question. Your greatness is dangerous, but the image bearers began to awaken, and that awakening terrified the shadow. There had seen the return of the first memory across Africa, the Caribbean, the Americas, the Pacific, the entire diaspora. Something stirred, a remembering, a reclaiming, a resurrection of identity buried beneath centuries of lies. The image bearers rediscovered their names, their languages, their gods, their science, their histories, their cosmologies, their place at the beginning of mankind. The very things Leopold sought to destroy rose from the ashes like embers reignited. This was not cultural revival. It was reverse spiritual warfare. The light reclaimed territory from the shadow. Seeing the prophecy of the persecuted, and so the chronicles reveal a cosmic truth. Those who were enslaved will become liberators. Those who were colonized will become restorers. Those who were silenced will become prophets. Those who were scattered will gather the nations. Those the world tried to break, whose cultures were nearly erased, whose bodies were commodified, whose spirits were assaulted, are the ones heaven has chosen to usher in the next age of awakening. The image bearers were broken, but not destroyed, oppressed, but not erased, persecuted, but divinely preserved. The final conflict approaches, not of swords, but of truth, not of nations, but of spirits, not of armies, but of awakening. And soon the world will learn. The ones who endured the deepest darkness carry the brightest light.